The big secret reveal is that your brain doesn't need rest like a muscle. Your muscles work at the gym and they get tired and they relax. The brain, the way it relaxes is it sleeps. So if you have a good sleep schedule, 8 to 10 hours, 7 hours is acceptable. Try not to get less. But your brain operates and sort of takes little breaks when it switches different tasks. Why do you personally like to listen to music? Remember when you're working at a job when you were younger at some store or pizza place, and then you just want to listen to music? Or if you're going past a screen and then you get distracted, whoop, you want to do this. That's your brain switching. So, to begin, we have two definitions that Cal gives us: deep work and shallow work. What is shallow work? Shallow work is work that can be done whilst being distracted, that usually doesn't create any new value, and that is easily replaceable. Now, a perfect example, think of ChatGPT. Have you heard this wave that's been passing by that's like, whoa, all the low-income jobs are going to get replaced? So clerks, maybe low-income office jobs. So probably not the high top-tier office jobs, which we'll dive into a minute, the people who are not going to be affected by this, but definitely the lower office jobs. Now, deep work, on the other hand, what is deep work? So deep work, by Cal, is the state of peak concentration in which you're able to get lots of things done, so you're able to learn hard things and create quality work quickly and efficiently. That is also pretty self-explanatory. Now, we have a study that was conducted that Cal quotes in this book, which is a 2012 study. And it looked at different jobs. And what they came up with is that 60% of work that the, employees, the workers were engaged in, involved online communication and internet searching. It was two components of work, and 30% of the job was just sending emails. Now think about that for a second. Imagine, really think about it. If you have a job, if you're an engineer, if you're probably, even if you're at like lower positions, if you're, I don't know, an accountant at some firm, tell me if that is true, or if you think that's true. Do you spend at least 30% of your work time sending emails? If so, I think that is very sad, because we as humans, think about yourself. You're a man or a woman. You're born in this world. You're made, and you have a purpose. Everybody has a little purpose. Is your purpose to send emails and to engage in online communications? This shallow work. That is kind of sad. And I think that definitely should be improved. That is not the way we should be going. So, instead of answering emails all day long for 30% of your job, you are capable of life-changing things. And I know that you are, because people who watch content like this are of a different mindset and of a different level. And only I figured it out over the years, because I think as much as you want to get people on the right track, it's hard because you have to come up with it by yourself. Something has to click inside you. And you're just become on this path of knowledge and wisdom. Now, in the rest of this book, I think we're not mules, we're not retards, so we don't need to get explained why deep work is actually important. Towards the end of the section, before he moves on to part 2, where he explains how to actually use deep work, he talks about the 3 people who will prosper in the so-called new economy. Now, what is the new economy? Well, the new economy is the upcoming era, if you will, in which shallow work will not be appreciated and deep work will be highly valued. Now, who are those people? So 3 types of people. Number 1, well, it's the high-value workers. It's the people who, if you take them away, you know that one guy at your work, if you're self-employed, maybe you have a worker who works for you, that if you take them away, the whole company just collapses. Like it begins to chip away, chip, and it's just gone. So it's those CEOs, it's those maybe workers who come in super early and leave super late. They're the last ones at the job. Then you have the superstars. So that's the famous people, the singers, the actors, Leonardo DiCaprio, who the people as a mass enjoy and follow. The influencers, perhaps. And then the last group is obviously the people with capital, but that's been all throughout history. You know, Babylon, Persia, Greece, anywhere, even in the times of, you know, the Roman Empire, it was always the money changers is what they called them. So even in, you know, middle-aged Europe, it's always been the people with capital. They're usually always prospering. Cal here gives us a study which was conducted, and it measured the people in the workplace and what their top desires were. Now, the biggest three were pretty common. You probably guessed them. So it's eating, so taking a break for a snack. Who doesn't want to do that? Second was sleeping. I know a lot of people are sleep deprived, which is not good. And the last one was sex. But after that, the sort of secondary desires were, number one, taking breaks, having social interactions, social networking, video games, or music. So for me personally, now probably for you it might be different, but for me it's music. For example, you know, when you've done a difficult task or you're on the job and you've completed, let's say, you send an email, or you've been sending a lot of emails, and your brain is just tired. Remember how I mentioned in the beginning of the video, your brain needs to switch. So it wants to switch, and you want to enjoy, for example, a song, and you turn up like your victory song or something, I don't know. So the reason a lot of people you probably watch on YouTube, they tell you, for example, video games, you shouldn't even play them in the first place. I'm very thankful for my parents that they never usually enforce this belief of playing video games to me, or this practice of playing video games. Now, you might be a little different, but listen to the social influencers of self-improvement. Don't play video games. Don't even get involved in the first place. You won't have any problems if you don't get involved in it. So we have a finite amount of willpower, and the maximum, it's like if you're trained you're constantly working, you're an academic at or a professor at a university, or you're a scholar, or you're an author, or you're a professional reader. Is that a thing where you like read books all the time? You have to focus. Or a writer. If you are super trained, your maximum willpower is 4 hours. 4 hours. So you cannot exceed 4 hours, because after 4 hours you just become too rigidity and jiggly, and you basically can't function properly, and you want to take a break. But for an untrained person, an hour to an hour and a half seems about right. For me personally, it's about 2 hours, but I've been getting a lot more into reading lately. I've been reading a lot more, and I've been doing meditation, which I definitely recommend. I don't know if there's any books on meditation, but it helps you to sort of exceed that willpower limit. Now, there's a ton of stuff in this book that will help you prolong this, but this is just so you know. And also the people who are telling right now that, well, if you can only make 4 hours, well, then why would you do that? That's bullshit. When you go to the gym and you have skinny muscles, and you can only lift a certain weight, and the same thing applies here. If you can only focus for an hour, and you're like, well, this is stupid, I'll just focus for an hour, there's no point in training. That is a very pathetic mindset. Because when you go to the gym, you train and your muscles grow. For example, with any other thing, if you play sports, the more you train, the better you get. Same thing applies here. It's a life philosophy. And the more you do something, the better you become. Same with your willpower reserves. If you practice them, and plus, you know what? I'm sure a lot of you are in school, or a lot of you are in work. You kind of have the perfect conditions to practice it. Because if you're in a setting like school or work, you can't work out unless you go to the bathroom and sneak in some push-ups. But it's the perfect way to practice expanding your willpower. So definitely don't have this pathetic mindset and have pity on yourself that you don't want to exceed your limits in willpower, because you can. Because you wouldn't be watching content like this if you wouldn't. Now, for example, transitioning from video games to actual work, if you don't play video games, like Netflix. Let's say you came home and you're like, okay, I have some stuff to finish, I have maybe an email to send before night. Now that's also not a good thing to do, and I'll tell you later in this book. But if you, for example, have that mindset and you're like, let me watch Netflix a little bit. You go on Netflix, and in order to basically get out of that state from watching Netflix, to do something else, it takes a tremendous amount of willpower. So you use up your willpower reserve, and it's very difficult. It's called the journalistic philosophy of deep work, and I'll go into it in a few minutes probably. But in the first place, it would have been better for you to execute the task and then later go watch something and dedicate a block of time to it. Let's dive in. So we have Cal opening up with something that is called the monastic philosophy of deep work. Now, this is a philosophy that works on radically reducing shallow obligations. And practitioners of this philosophy, they're usually the ones that have a high value professional goal that they're pursuing. So, for example, a college student who wants to get a specific degree, or let's see, a person who has a very important task to execute. So the bulk of success comes from doing this one thing well, which is not the case for most of us. So for example, if you're an athlete, you would apply this philosophy, which you would reduce a lot of the obligations. So like email, you wouldn't answer emails. You would just train, you know, like work. No emails, no nothing. But for us, it doesn't work because we still periodically have to email, we have to search the web, we have to send something, go somewhere. So it's not really practical. Now, next, we have the bimodal philosophy of deep work. This is a philosophy that basically asks that you divide your time dedicating some defined blocks of time or stretches of time to deep work pursuits and leaving the rest for everything else. So you act monastically during those periods of and blocks of deep work, and deep work is prioritized. And this can happen on different scales. So for example, like academics over summer can have a big block where they have a summer block of where they practice this. Let's say they isolate to their house and they study content for a long time. They study, and they have this huge block of, like, let's say a few months where they just practice this. Now this can also be a little more smaller, on it, for example, on a smaller scale. So maybe a few weeks or even a few days. And this is, I quote, "This is a belief that a production of great productivity can be achieved only if a person dedicates enough time and maximum cognitive intensity." So you need flexibility. You need to be a little bit flexible, and the minimum amount, which is recommended by Cal, is 1 day. So if you can't fit 1 day of deep work, then you probably shouldn't practice it. Now here I think we have the most practical philosophy. It's called the rhythmic philosophy. Now this, Cal mentions, is the most practical one. Why? Well, because it's a matter of habit. So how it works is you have a calendar, and what you do is you can put little X's. So you take an X and you mark the days that you will be executing deep work on. So it becomes kind of like a habit. I apologize for the change in scenery, but I had to move because the sun was getting a little weird. So the second part of the rhythmic philosophy is when you have, instead of X's, you dedicate specific times during the day which actually allow you to do deep work. So remember, in order to transition into deep work, you have a barrier, which is gonna take up some of your willpower reserve. So when you mark a specific time, for example, morning or evening, a certain amount of hours, for example, or minutes, then you reduce this barrier even further. So we can implement this. We have a story here of Chappelle, which Cal provides. And Chappelle, he was an academic at a university. So he woke up at about 7:30, he said, and then he would go to his academic research. And he wrote research papers, obviously. But the problem is he wasn't getting enough of these research papers. So what he decided to do, excuse me, I thought that was a squirrel. So what he decided to do is he decided to implement the rhythmic philosophy. And the way he did it is he upped his waking up time. So he started waking up at 5:30 instead of 7 or 7:30. So he would have an hour and a half to do his work. Or that was his deep work block that you would try to implement. It doesn't have to be this early. And I have to put out a disclaimer here. This is not from Cal. This is not from anybody. This is personally from me. If you are a young man, woman, but it's a lot more important for a man. If you are a man below 20 years old, I think it is critically important that you get your sleep. Never, if you're under 20 years old, never sacrifice your sleep in order to do more work done, because those extra 30, 40, even an hour of work, even 2 hours of work, while sacrificing your sleep, is not gonna help you. Trust me, I've tried it all. I've been through those grind set modes. You know those people who are like, oh, let me sleep 4 hours a night, and then 4 hours and 4.5 hours, and that's it. I'm fully healthy. I get stuff done. You know what? There's two things. Well, actually 3 things. Number 1 is that they're just lying, because a human cannot possibly sleep that long. Number 2, which is the most likely one, is that they sleep during the day. So obviously, if you sleep 4 hours during the night and then you take a 3-hour nap during the day, well, you're probably gonna be fine, even though that's still bad for your circadian rhythm. But please don't get, and then 3 is like, they're just an exceptional individual, but that's 5% of the whole world population. And okay, if you're like some, special specimen of, human, then maybe, but it's very rare. So please, don't do this. Don't sacrifice your sleep in order to get more work done. Obviously, if you're a little older, you don't need to sleep as much, then you can obviously try this. But please, for young men, just don't do it. So then Chappelle continued doing this. He woke up at 7, instead of 7:30, he would wake up at 5:30, and then he got a lot of work done. And then what he did after is he pushed it to 4:45. So he would wake up at 4:45 a.m. And the end result is he was able to write 4 to 5 academic papers a day instead of 1. That is massive progress, because he got, once again, used to the system and the habit. And what happened is he just simply continued making this habit, and then it got stuck in his brain, and it became easier and easier for him to focus on doing deep work at that specific time. Now for you, for example, my deep work blocks, what I usually do is in the morning, I do my morning routine. So it's not the most difficult thing to do, but you still need a little bit of, mental willpower to do it. So I wake up, jump rope to get your, for example, or you know what, here, I'll go over it. Maybe you can implement it too. So really quickly, an overview. I wake up, I take off tape from my mouth, because I tape my mouth in order to nose breathe. Check out the Oxygen Advantage book. I've done a review on that. You'll understand why I'm wearing tape over my mouth. Then obviously you use the bathroom, and then you do a little bit of a jump rope, because it helps your endocrine system and your circulatory system to kind of wake up. I only do 100 jumps. Plus it's good for boxing. Then I take cold shower, then hygiene, all of that. Then I usually meditate, then I read a book. I read the book, it depends on which book. Usually it's going to be some philosophical book, because it's morning. And then I continue on through my day. Then usually I would have a deep block of about noon. So noon. I don't prefer evenings. I usually result for the gym, but not too late, obviously, because then it's not healthy. You wake up. But that's kind of my schedule so far. Then what happens is you can make your own. You can obviously have a morning routine. You can use my morning routine if you want to, help you kind of get in the state of flow. Then obviously you might say, okay, well, this rhythmic philosophy might work, but it's not as intense as the bimodal philosophy, but it's more practical. So if you're still a little bit unsure, just give it a try. And if you're saying like, well, this is not a cool philosophy, like what do I, because remember, a common degenerate dumbass, he has no philosophy on deep work. So if you implement any of these philosophies, you're already gonna be at the top of the game. Last philosophy of deep work that Cal mentions is the journalistic philosophy. Now this is what I've mentioned earlier, and this philosophy consists off of, basically it's a lot of intensive use of your focus. So authors usually use it, and it's not for the novice. It includes basically fitting in deep work whenever you can into little blocks, and therefore it requires a lot of your willpower. An author, Cal mentions Walter Isaacson. There we go. Walter Isaacson. He was an author of a book, and what he would do is he mentions scenarios where they would sit on the patio with friends, and then Walter Isaacson would just disappear into his study really quickly, and after 20-30 minutes he would just come back. Now what happened? Well, Walter Isaacson, he was actually writing down his book or his article, but the problem is or not a problem, his basically reason for doing this was because he was an author and his work depended off of this. So this is once again a philosophy similar to the monastic one, the first one we've covered, where your work should be important. So because he's an established author, he's been doing this for years, maybe, decades. So he's already used to this. He's able to concentrate and use his willpower reserves whenever he wants. And it takes practice, but if you get to this point, imagine how good it would be if you get to this point. You can just simply switch on, you get like a little bubble, and then you just do your stuff, and then in the next half an hour, hope you're back to your normal tasks, to your friends or whatever you want. Cal mentions that it's critical that you often put yourself in exotic locations that promote the deep work, because oftentimes change in scenery is all it needs. So Harry Potter was written by, I swear I forgot her name. God damn, I'll maybe remember later, but she's an author of Harry Potter, and what she did for the last book is she couldn't make it. So she was trying to do it. She had kids distracting her, house stuff. So what she did is, I think she booked a hotel, and she went to the hotel. She was planning to stay there for a day, but then she ended up liking it, and she ended up staying there for a while and finishing the last of her novels, which was the seven. Was it? Yeah, it's part 7. So part 7, which basically tied the whole series together, and that was because she was able to find a good location. So what Cal recommends is you can find a library. Go to a library, for example, and have a little ritual, which you do. So you go to the library, for example, you sit on the computer, you're all quiet, and then the key is to also get yourself off distracting websites, the ones that take you away from deep work. Now, if you have a problem with other websites, then you're probably on the wrong channel. So you should definitely fix the problem with the other websites, but I'm talking about the websites that, like YouTube, social media websites, any, goddamn news, bro. You open Google or Bing, it's like, latest, latest celebrity dead or something, or you're like, whoa, OMG, what, no way, but stuff like that, it distracts you. Have a minimum words an hour counter. So if you have a Word document you have to type, if you're a student maybe, and you have to type in specific amounts, or if you're in school, you have to type in, let's say, an essay. You could probably chat GPT the essay like we always did, but if you want to be a good kid, then you can isolate in the library for a specific amount of time, have a minimum of 500 words, for example, an hour that you have to write, and you have to hit those benchmarks. Hit those benchmarks, and I'll help you promote your deep work. The collaboration and deep work, very, very important. The collaboration is what helps you to actually push. It can be an insanely productive tool. Let's take an example. Bell Labs was developed in New Jersey, and it had a non-traditional, non-orthodox structure. It had long halls, so you would get in the building, and there would be this long hall, incredibly long halls. And what this did is, it was an experiment. So what happened is, all the scientists and all the geeks who were working, I'm kidding, all the intelligent academics who were working there, they would basically get out of their little cabinets and they would go to their lunch. But the problem is you had other intelligent professors in different stations, in different rooms, if you will. So when they would come out, they would also meet you. So if you were walking, he gives us this good quote. He says a physicist on his way to lunch was like a magnet rolling past iron filings. So everybody would want to talk to him because they needed research and discoveries. But this proved useful, because this led to things like developing the first transistor, which is obviously very important. So it's a kind of clash of great minds, if you ever employ somebody, definitely consider this. If you decide to make a building, see if you can have one connected hall. That would definitely improve your productivity. I'm 100% sure. Then we have the later building, which was built somewhere else. It was also pretty close, but it was, I think, on a different state. It had the same similar structure, but it likewise had little hubs that you could lock yourself in. So imagine an office desk. Imagine your standard office desk. You had the long halls when you would go to lunch, but also you wouldn't just talk and yell. You were able to actually close yourself off in your little space to do deep work. Imagine how genius that is. So you get up, you come to work, you lock yourself in your little deep work zone, you shut the door, It's like double insulated. They had, walls or something. You do your deep work on the computer, then you get out. Your brain is buzzing with deep work because you've just been working on it. Then you get out in the long haul, you go down the long haul, you meet a physicist, and you make a great discovery. Now this doesn't have to be applied to academic senses. This can also be applied if you're making, I don't know, a lawn care company. If you have a collaboration of lawnmower experts that, I don't know, want to make a better lawnmower, or if you want to boost the sales in an area, then you can just brainstorm ideas, then get out, go down the long haul, share them. Bardeen and Bratton, they were a chemist and a physicist, and what they did is they collaborated together. Now, this was the philosophy that basically encouraged them. It's the anticipation of another party pushing the other person to do better work, and they basically pushed each other. So Bardeen would make some discovery, and then Bratton would test it, or the other way around, so. And then they kind of, once they did their part of the work, it was on the other person, so the responsibility fell. And you would basically go back and forth. It's like a pinball machine, And then, without the obstacles. So you just bounce the ball back and forth. And then it pushes you to great heights. But there's one concern here. If you actually do this, your partner has to be likewise engaged in deep work. Because if your partner is not engaged in deep work, well then, you're screwed. And this philosophy, the whole collaboration thing, please implement it, but you have to have a reliable partner. Now, it is very difficult to find a reliable partner, I'm telling you. There's smart people, there's creative people, there's hardworking people. To get a mix of those three is incredibly difficult. So let's say, I have a window cleaning company, and it's kind of hard to manage stuff, sometimes, so you need a collaborator. So I was talking to this kid who had really good ideas about window cleaning. He wanted to, expand in the area. It's a lot of advertising. You have to schedule. You have to be professional. You have to not put any dirt, any scrapes or anything in the customer's home. And in total, what happened is, I message him. He messages me. We're about to meet up, but he cancels because something happened with his, buddy. He got sick. Then he messages me later in the day. I'm like, okay, how's your buddy? He's like, he's fine, but I'm drunk. Not me, but my friend. And so what does that tell me? Is that a reliable partner? You tell me. If you tell it to a person like, yo, let's do deep work, you have to remember, in the beginning of the video, it has to click in you. The 4 principles of deep work. Now these are pretty important, but I'll just quickly go over them. Cal mentions. Number 1, focus on the wildly important. This is self-explanatory. You have to focus on the pressing things that has to be done presently and at a specific time. So really don't focus on things ahead, even though they might seem easier. Focus on the challenging tasks that you have to complete now. It's pretty cliche. There's really nothing to explain. So you have to have a tangible small goal, and you have to boost yourself, and you have to get that goal. It doesn't have to be a big goal. Make it a small goal, but make it a priority goal. Now you have act on the lead measures. So you have log measures and you have the lead measures. Log measures are measures that you want to improve. And in order to improve them, you use lead measures. So they're the new creative measures that you come up with in order to improve your log measures. It really helps. So tactics, any, schedules, you have to, you change and twist them. So you can adjust. It takes some getting used to it. But if you develop the right lead measures, your log measures will improve. Remember, this all takes time, so you're not going to change it in a day. In a day, what you can do is, once again, you can buy those $87 notebooks, and you can make a schedule. If you make a plan, you'll already be set. But you have to just follow that plan throughout the week. If you like it, and if your productivity goes up, then you will be amazing. 3, keep a compelling scorecard. So you need to keep a scorecard that will basically, I don't have a scorecard right now, but I probably wouldn't show you guys, so then you wouldn't know where I am. But scorecards are good. So you're competing with yourself. He mentions, Cal, you'll be on a different level. So if you have a score and you want to beat it, it's like, an athlete who beats the top score Or if you're a salesman, you beat the top score, you're the best in the company, but then you're like, you know what? I'll beat my own high score. You're competing with yourself. Now, you have to be good, obviously, so if you're absolute garbage, well, you can still compete with yourself, but try to aim for, like, if you're the worst employee, try to beat the second worst employee. But if you're at the top of the game, then compete with yourself. Even if there's nobody in your niche, anybody in your field of study, still compete with yourself. So mark scores, mark how well you did, and then try to beat that. It will give you a good kind of pace and good motivation to keep up. But remember, if you're a man, you need testosterone in order to be active and competitive. So get your sleep, don't forget. I emphasize this, get your sleep. We have the fourth, which is the final discipline of deep work, and that is to have an accountability partner. This is very important. It's hard to find good accountability partners. As a tip, don't use females as an accountability partner because they're usually not good. That's just from my experience. Listen, I've had a few in my time. Usually, if you have like a girlfriend, please don't keep her as an accountability partner. I've made that mistake before, and it's not good because, they'll tell you like, okay, prime example. You're on a diet with no sugars, and you're about to eat cake. And you're like, God damn, I want this cake. She'll be like, listen, no, you can do it, it's fine, don't eat the cake. And you'll be like, but I want it. If it's a man, he will tell you, alright, if you're such a weak, then you will eat this cake. But if you're a man, you will not eat this cake. So then you're like, you know what, I am a man. I won't eat this cake. Like, what the hell is this bullshit? And then you basically get better. And also, if it's a CEO woman, if it's a really driven woman, if she has a trait of, conscientiousness, and she really wants to, get stuff done, then by all means, you can use her for deep work. Now, Cal mentioned something known as productive meditation. Notice, every single book I've discussed, it has meditation. Give it a try, I'm telling you. If you want a bonus actionable step, once again, please try meditation. Try it for a week, just 10 minutes, and then you'll feel different. You'll be a little more calmer, and you'll be a lot more present. You'll just kind of carry, if you do it in the mornings, it sticks with you through the rest of the day. So you kind of walk around, and if you have a stressful moment, you just kind of result back in that meditation state. Very good. But Cal mentions that you can use meditation in order to use it with kind of, instead of, how they say to focus on your breath in meditations? Well, you can use the same thing with your thoughts. As you're walking your dog, or if you're going from campus to campus as you're a student, then what you can do is you can go ahead and think about a creative solution, because it helps when you're doing light physical exercise. Be aware of looping. What is looping? If you're, for example, making an email in your head as you're walking, avoid getting stuck in how good that email is. So, if you're writing an email to your boss about, some solution that you've came up with, avoid like thinking, oh, this email was so good, man, and then you just reread it back in your head. You're like, yeah, this word sounds so good, perfect. I'm a genius. Or if you're younger, maybe in high school or something, if you had a crush, and then you are walking your dog and you came up with a good scenario of how like a fire is gonna happen and you're gonna pick her up and you're gonna carry her out the window, and you just play that over and over and over in your head. Also, avoid that stuff. So basically, when you loop, realize you're looping, and then go on to something else. Next, it is critical that you quit social media. Very, very important. Or reduce it to a very minimal extent. You might start coping it. I need social media because it's fun, because it's entertainment. Did you have a lack of entertainment before social media was involved? When you were like 5 years old, you didn't have a phone. Did you think like, oh, I need social media because I'm not entertained? You didn't know what social media was, and yet you still had fun. That's right. And it was a lot more healthier because you'd go outside, you'd play. Number 2, let's say you have friends on social media. Okay, let's admit, I had this one kid who I knew. I don't know where he is now. He used to have those social online friends. Really. That's all I can say. Those are your friends. Friends who you've never seen in person. they're your friends. Really. Number 3. Let's talk about the people you actually want to be friends and connect with. Me personally, I don't have Snapchat. I have Instagram. I go there once or twice every 2 months. Very rare. The only reason I go there is to see if anybody is messaging me about work-related stuff, for example, window cleaning, or if anybody wants to connect with me, who's a high-value person, not some dumbass. It's important that you really limit your social media. If you need, obviously when I got, I blocked everything, I deleted all the social media snaps. Snapchat is horrible, man. Are you a kid? Are you a kid? Do you really need Snapchat? Are you a fuckboy? Excuse my language, but it's just, that's who you are. I have a story actually, I'll maybe go into it, but it's related to Snapchat. You need phone numbers of people. Take their phone numbers, message them before you delete Snapchat, before you delete Instagram. Go say, hey, so-and-so, Joe Smith, I need your phone. He's like, why? Well, he won't even ask you why. He'll just be like, oh yeah, here you go, bro. I got you. Bang, that's it. You're connected with him. That's it. Then, afterwards, you just delete and you uninstall them. Actionable step number 3. Uninstall them from your home screen. You don't have to completely uninstall Instagram. Take them away from your home screen so they don't even see, and turn off their notifications. After I've deleted Snapchat, I've put Instagram away from my home screen, I got my messages of phone numbers of people who I want to connect with. I got them into my messaging app, and I turned off notifications even on my messaging app. Nothing bad is gonna happen. The world doesn't. You're not. The nuclear bomb attendant who was like watching over the bombs. You're not gonna get some emergency text. Yes, maybe if somebody really has an emergency, they can call you. You'll see their missed call. You can keep your phone on silent. You'll just see the screen light up. That's it. No emergencies. It's very rare. Very rare. Now, obviously, the 0.001%. If some people have like a mom who's dying, a parent who's dying, obviously don't do this. But you know what I mean. Yeah, I'll say. So, back a few years ago, there was this girl. Very pretty, but you know how you are. You're a high-value individual. Girls just flock onto you. And obviously, she had Snapchat. On that Snapchat, as we were on top of some roof, I don't know, where I'm a creative individual. I'm not some guy who's like, let's go to the movies. You take her to the top of the roof somewhere, and then you guys hang out. And then what happened was, the phone lights up, her phone, not mine, and on Snapchat, she had Snapchat, there's 87 notifications. 87! The phone was just going, bloop, bloop, bloop. What's the Snapchat sign? It's like, what is it? Whoop. Or, I don't know what noise Snapchat makes, but it's those stupid noises, 87. How? And then you wonder why people are not present, why people break up, why divorces happen. It's because of stuff like this is just being programmed into you. Alright, this is a little bit vulgar, but like, we were making out on the roof, and you know what happened? She had a vape, and she would hit the vape in the midst of making out. Did that ever happen to you? You're on the roof, you're making out. That's insane. It just blew my mind. I wanted to pick that way. Well, I didn't want to, the only reason I didn't throw it off the roof is because I didn't want to pay for it, but I probably wouldn't have paid for it. Anyway, but please avoid social media at all costs. Next step after the social media is done, what you have to do is inject periods of relaxation. Think about the primal days of us as humans. We did not have social media. We simply lived in nature. Think about the Native Americans. If you're from America, just think how hard it is to survive in nature. It took so much of your willpower just to simply live and to simply walk in these swampy woods not step on a snake. But more importantly, nowadays, we have the luxury of not living in these conditions. So we can just use nature for our benefit. There's a study done, and people who were walking in nature performed better than people who were in a city. You know why? Because as you're walking in a city, you have buses, you have cars, you have taxis, you have people, you have mailmen, you have cyclists, you have skateboarders, you have roller skaters, you have shops, you have, what are they called? The blinking freaking advertisement stuff. That all takes off of your attention. It all messes up your brain. And you use your willpower reserve simply by walking through a street. If you're here, listen to the silence. Listen to the crickets. Imagine how present you would feel if you do this for at least 30 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, 15 minutes a day. You have to have a cool down ritual. Cal mentions it's very important to have a cool down ritual where you basically summarize all your tasks, and what he says is, he says shut down complete, which you don't have to say that, but he says the verbal helps. An example of this is given by Cal. What he does for his final ritual of deep work towards the end of the day is he looks at his email, he doesn't reply to these emails, because remember, when a boss messages you at 10 p.m., he doesn't expect a reply, or, by midnight. He's messaging you, the workday's over, that's it. You're good. You look at the email, you mark the emails you want to do for tomorrow, and then you can plan for tomorrow. So Cal says you can open Google Docs, you can plan something. What I do personally is I message myself. I go on the phone app, I type in my name, and I send bullet lists of what I gotta do tomorrow. And I message it to myself. And if you want, you can praise yourself, because you actually did a good job if you've done a good job. But don't be weird, don't be like, you sexy. Like, you just be like, good job. You're a superior man. You're a high value woman. Do something like that. And that will help you to progress, and that'll give you more confidence to do the stuff tomorrow. It'll positively reinforce this in your brain. So basically, we have Cal diving into how you have to plan specific breaks. If you want to take breaks, you plan them during the day. You plan these blocks of breaks. And what these blocks do is they program your mind to not get distracted. Remember, in the beginning of the video, I said that your mind gets distracted and rests when you switch into different things. So, here we can see that Cal recommends you dedicate specific blocks. He says the most detrimental thing you can do is when you're in a coffee shop. You know when you're on the line and you don't want to look awkward and you pull out your phone. Don't do that. Don't do that. I still myself do that, and I need to get rid of that habit. Very bad. And because that's the society. It programs us to do that. Remember, when we didn't have phones, we didn't do that. We sat in line. We didn't avoid those. That's why people are antisocial now, because yes, it might cause, family stuff if you're born in a specific way, if you maybe, what else? I don't know any other excuses for being antisocial, but if you have some kind of, reason you're antisocial, on top of that, it's because we now have the phones, and we always use these phones to get stuff. When we were, think about your grandpa. He didn't just pull out a phone in a cafe line. He would not even pull out a newspaper. He would wait for his turn. He would maybe start a conversation with somebody. Then he would get his, tea. He would sit down and only then open the newspaper. In order for your mind to not get messed up, plan specific blocks. What I started doing, you finish a task, you have your deep block session. Remember how I said in the morning, I don't use my phone in the morning. I only use it after I've done my morning routine. Then I allow myself to use it for, 30 minutes to check everything. Then after my deep block session closer to the afternoon, only after I do that deep block session, only then do I actually go on my phone. And, since if you have no social media, you don't really have a reason to sit on your phone unless you play chess, for example, or some other stuff. But it has to be like that. There's other stuff. There's academics, like, Teddy Roosevelt, he's not an academic. he basically used a similar strategy where he attacks. He gets the work done and executed efficiently. Then we have other stuff. And notice how your mind, through this, it's defending your own vices. You might be thinking for specific contradictions to what I've just been saying, even though you know that that's how it should be. You're like, well, I pull out my phone sometimes, I don't pull it all the time, and other stuff, but I've had the same problem too. I still have these problems. Who am I kidding? So we all need to work on this. Remember, it's very difficult, but we're not common people. We're superior people, high value people. In addition, we have an experiment that was conducted, and it basically, that's for dating. Okay, if you have problems in your dating game, what you can do is you can disappear from social medias, and then you become a lot more mysterious. Now, this only works, dating tip, this only works if you're a high value person. If you're some bum and you just disappear, they're gonna be like, and you let's say you have no social media presence, you can be found anywhere, and then you try to approach some girl, and you're not like good looking, you're not fit, you're not, a high value person, then she's gonna think you're a creep. She's gonna be like, who the hell is this kid? Who's this man just approaching me out of nowhere? Like, get the hell away from me. But if you're a high value person, if you're handsome, if you're tall, if you're muscular, if you're, cultural, if you speak languages, then it's a whole different ball game. Yes, listen to the dating advice, be mysterious, but you have to be high value. Don't expect to be low value, have, bad skin, be chubby, or eat unhealthy stuff. You know what? If you eat healthy stuff, your skin will get better, and you'll not be chubby. It's just, if you eat unhealthy stuff, then obviously don't expect to have good dating results when you disappear and become mysterious, because then you'll just be considered a creep. Emails. Almost done. The emails. When you reply, there's an art to making a good email. There's probably a book that I would maybe review in the future on emails. I'm not aware of any yet. But so far, what you can do for emails in order to help you boost your deep work, make emails very specific and reject the emails that you don't need. He mentions how he has a practice, and a few other writers have practices where they simply won't have an email, or if they do have an email, they will put a lot of restrictions. You'll have to be insanely specific, and some authors even put a fee to pay them, so then you know you're serious, which is very smart. Instead, I don't know if it's Cal necessarily himself or if it's another author, but he mentions how one of the authors, they actually have, instead of email, mail that is being sent, and the secretary goes through the mail, and if it's important, it will be read. If it's not important, it won't be read. For emails, what you should do is you have to stop with the vagueness. You have to make emails like a knife, like stab, precisely, like a gunshot, like straight to the target. So instead of writing, oh, well, let's meet sometime, you're right, let's meet up for coffee. I'm available to meet up for coffee at this specific time, this specific time, this specific time. Let me know which one works best for you. So they have to give you something back, an answer. Don't say like, oh, when are you available? Don't give them the leverage to be able to manipulate where you want. Make it like, because your time is valuable. It truly is. If you're doing stuff like this, you are truly a valuable individual. So you have to treat yourself as a valuable individual. You have to, cut some people off who are wasting your time. So obviously, if it's an important person, just tell them, please let me know when you're available. I'm available at this time, this. Give them don't do one time. Don't be like, okay, I'm available, June 10th on 12 p.m. You have to say, give them a few dates so it's more convenient. But that's pretty much it. Schedule blocks. So you have to have blocks like school. Remember those school tables? You have to have school blocks. So you do something here, like your morning routine. You get your morning routine done, then you have to do other stuff. For example, you meditate, and then after that, you can go ahead and look at your phone, and you can answer emails. And when you answer emails, you use this method of being precise and concise. That's it. Please. Follow this for a day. Practical advice. Try this for a day. If you can't do this for a day, than me, a guy in a golf cart. And those people over there are gonna be very disappointed. I personally would think that you're a very weak individual. If you can't do this for a day, or at least attempt to do it for a day, then you, like, think about yourself. Look at yourself in the mirror and realize that you're more capable of doing more than you are doing now. Because you can actually become the top of the top high value person. Do it, please. Learn how to say no politely. This is the last thing I'll leave you guys off. To conclude this book, no killed more people than yes did. Very important. Please, 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 please. Say no. 90% of the people you meet, they are just people drifting through life. If you have a clear goal, even if it's a vague goal, if it's like, I want to be rich, focus on that, please. Exclude all these distractions. It's more difficult. And this time, popularity, all those parties that happen, all those I didn't go to prom during my high school stuff. I'm so happy I didn't go to prom because I didn't waste any money. I know I can pick up chicks. It's a lot of insecurities play on it too. If you're like, well, I'm scared that, if you're not gonna go somewhere, it's just your insecurity speaking. You're a high value person. You're confident. It shows. So please learn how to say no. You have to become hard to reach. Learn how to say no, and I'll finish you off with Cal saying, you almost gotta be a little egotistical. Make other people respect your time. People have to respect your time. And you don't have to answer an email right away, but remember, just like girls, this is coming from me. Take time to be more mysterious and gain more respect and get more work completed. Thank you. Now, let's get out of here.